At the tail end of 2022, we reviewed the Hummer EV pickup truck. And let's just say that we found it large, overpriced, and ridiculously overpowered. It was built on GM's Ultium platform, a platform that now underpins a whole range of different vehicles across different price points, across many of GM's different brands. And now it even powers an EV made by Honda, the Honda Prologue. But in a pickup truck form, can this, which is the Chevrolet Silverado EV WT, be what the Hummer EV was definitely not? A versatile, practical, sensible work vehicle that can tow 10,000 pounds, that can carry a large amount of things, that has a useful front trunk, and does away with all of the ridiculous posturing that the Hummer EV offered. See, this vehicle is built on exactly the same platform as the Hummer EV. It has the same motors, the same battery pack, and basically the same body with a few nips and tweaks here. Sure, it doesn't have the adjustable air suspension. It doesn't have the four-wheel steering or the crab walk. But I think what it might offer could be more useful and, if I'm really honest, what the market is really looking for. Forget all of the gadgets, forget all of the computer tech. This is a vehicle that I think might just offer everybody the vehicle that we've all been yearning for. Normally, when we get to review a vehicle, we get to do it in really pretty surroundings, either around our home location in Portland, Oregon, or on some fancy route that's been curated by the automaker in question. Today we're going to experience the joy and the beauty of 405 south towards San Diego, because we have literally 2 hours to film this review. The B-roll for this review, or more accurately first drive, was filmed late last night, so that's why it looks slightly different to where we are right now, and we have to catch a flight back to Portland. For some reason, GM doesn't have the work truck variant of the Silverado EV on its press fleet. Getting hold of one is really difficult, as Kyle from Out of Spec has proven multiple times. So in order for us to get hold of this vehicle, what we decided to do was to basically hire one as a regular old customer through Hertz, because Hertz happened to have one on the fleet at the airport that we were landing at. So it was like, let's just do it. The cost of renting this for a day and a half was $360-ish. It's kind of no surprise that this particular Silverado EV work truck only has 2,500 miles on the clock. It's not cheap to rent from Hertz, although the experience was really very easy and trouble-free. And I should also note that this rental was paid for by the lovely supporters of this channel. People regularly complain that we are quote-unquote begging for money when we talk about our Patreon supporters, but it is our primary source of income. So if you'd like to enable us to do more first drives like this in the future, there's a link in the down below. Finally, before we get into the actual meat and potatoes of this review, if I look a little red, especially my hands, it's because we were filming another video for this channel yesterday on bikes, and we both got terribly sunburnt. I have a lot of makeup on. The Silverado EV is Chevy's answer to the Ford F-150 Lightning, and they sit very much in the same market segment. However, unlike the F-150 Lightning, which has a 130 kilowatt hour maximum battery pack capacity, 100 kilowatt hours give or take if you go for the standard range variant, the Chevrolet Silverado EV work truck has a battery pack that is pushing 200 kilowatt hours. It's the same battery pack and underlying drivetrain technology that you'll find in the Hummer EV. But while the Hummer EV feels ostentatious and over the top and loud and brash and noisy, the Silverado EV feels a lot closer to my F-150 Lightning in terms of driving experience. You can choose between 2 different levels of regenerative braking, and right now I've got it set to its middle setting. The max regen, it's kind of extreme. I can't speak to the rest of the Chevrolet Silverado EV lineup because I haven't driven them, but I can say that the work truck variant is missing the now expected Regen on-demand paddle that you find on most Chevrolet and GM EVs. It's even on the Honda Prologue, which is based on the same Ultium platform as this vehicle. For a work truck, that makes sense because you're trying to make this vehicle feel and behave as much like a regular gasoline vehicle as you possibly can, and a strange paddle on the steering wheel, well, that adds extra complexity, it adds extra cost, and GM is trying to keep the cost of this vehicle down. And that's very apparent throughout. The seats are manually adjustable. There's no height adjustment, you just got forwards and backwards adjustment, and you've got the rake adjustment for the backrest. There's no lumbar support that's adjustable, it's just a standard, boring, plain old seat. The interior of this truck is finished in a very durable, hard-wearing material. It's like a plastic that's been in work trucks for years. And there's no fancy technology, no head-up display, no highway driving assistance, nothing like that. You do get a pre-collision warning, you do get cruise control. That is about it. You do get a very nice touchscreen display in the center of the vehicle, but it's 11 or 12 inches if memory serves, as opposed to the 17 inches in the higher trim variants. But again, perfunctory and usable is the order of the day. One nice feature I like about this vehicle is that the center physical buttons can be remapped to whatever you want them to do. There's not a whole lot of different options for you to remap, i.e. there's not a whole lot of things that you would want to remap them to, but it's possible. You also get wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. That's standard on the center console. And if you happen to glance at the center console display, you'll notice from the icons that there's a lot of similarities between it and the Hummer EV's infotainment system. The work truck is less about showy though, and more about just getting the dang job done. When the Silverado EV launched, one of its big selling points was its fully automatic midgate that allowed you to drop down the rear of the cab and lift up the glass, essentially giving you a longer pickup bed for transporting of larger items like canoes and bikes. The work truck variant doesn't get that. It's just a solid cab and a solid piece of glass. You can't remove it, you can't drop it down. I don't know if it's an option on the work truck, and if I sound a little unprepared for this, it is because we made the decision yesterday that we were going to hire this because we needed a vehicle and film a review about it. But then that's why this is a first drive instead of a full-blown review. And first impressions of this truck from both myself and Em were extremely positive. We got into the truck and we were like, everything's manual. This is good. The manual control means that less can go wrong, and when it does go wrong, it's going to be less expensive to repair. Even the frunk is manually operated. Sure, there's an electronic release to give you access to the frunk, but all it does is just pop the frunk up enough for you to grab it and lift it onto rather hefty but well-made gas struts. If you want to pull it back down again, you just reach up, grab it, pull, and then a little motor sucks the frunk lid back in and locks it again. It's all very nice. Same is true for the tailgate. Fully manual, no motors to go wrong, nothing to worry about. And I do wish that automakers saw the benefit of making EVs like this, because right now I can't think of a single car company that's making a fully manual, work-oriented truck and not restricting it in some way or another. This variant of the Silverado EV is marketed and sold primarily to fleet operators, whether they be municipalities who need a large number of vehicles on their fleet, or rental companies like Hertz. If you are an independent private customer and you want to get hold of this, good luck. And that's a shame, because I feel that, well, there's a little bit of protectionist behavior going on here. If you are gatekeeping the models that people can buy, and you're preventing people from buying the most work-oriented, lowest cost to repair vehicle, you're kind of ensuring that only a certain type of people will buy the vehicle, and only a certain type of use will be taken out of the vehicle. Granted, I've only spent probably about 50 or 60 miles behind the wheel of this vehicle, which isn't a huge amount of time to give you a proper review, and hopefully GM will see this and maybe let us have the work truck for a longer period of time. Unfortunately, while there was a press launch event for this, only outlets that focus on manly work trucks were invited, and, well, while I am a butch lesbian, I don't really have much in the way of manliness to go about. If you put the truck in single pedal mode, and the truck didn't arrive in single pedal mode when we picked it up from Hertz, it's very easy and simple to drive this around town. There are just a few niggles, however. The all-wheel drivetrain of this truck tends to cog when you are not quite moving, and I'll explain. If you drive in single pedal mode, it's a bad habit of mine. You don't actually put your foot on the brake when you come to a stop, you just rest it on the accelerator. And what I've noticed with this truck is that if you have your foot in just the right position, where there's no brake force being applied and there's no auto hold as far as I can tell, the truck will sort of start to creep forward and then stop itself, and then creep forward and then stop itself, and then creep forward and stop itself, which feels a little weird. I'm going to see if I can get it to do this at these lights here. We've come to a full stop. My foot is resting on the go pedal, and there it is. It does that little cogging almost, moving forward, stopping, moving forward, stopping. And it can be a little irritating. You just move your foot a little bit though, and it solves the problem. As with every EV that GM's made, you do get Onstar with this vehicle, and if you are a fleet operator, there are options for larger fleets from GM that allow you to do full fleet management. You keep a track of mileage, speed, what the vehicle's doing in terms of state of charge, and also, of course, help with charging experience. Because this is a rental through Hertz, I haven't had a chance to play with any of that, but I did experience the charging last night. We took it to an EV Go charging station. Like a lot of modern EVs on the market, you can tell the vehicle, hey, I'm heading to a charging station. I would like you to precondition the battery. That is exactly what this truck did last night. Because the battery in this is immense, over 200 kilowatt hours, and that gives you sort of between 350 and 400 miles of estimated real world range, I didn't drain it. I got it down to like 79%. And so my charging experience last night was slower than the potential of the 800 volt, 350 kilowatt capable battery pack. I don't think it charges at 350 kilowatts. It's something like 225 kilowatts if memory serves correctly. Even though the battery pack was, nearly 80% full, I was still seeing charge rates of around 100 kilowatts for a very short period of time, and then it ramped back to about 80, and by the time we'd finished at 90% full, it was closer to about 40 kilowatts. So I can't really talk in full to the charging experience of this vehicle, but I can tell you that from the short charging session we went through last night, it worked very well. The charge port is on the rear left of the vehicle, which can sometimes cause some problems if you are parked at a charging stall that needs the charge port door to be on the other side of the vehicle. And that opens a whole can of worms about accessibility and uniform design for charge ports so that we know where they're going to be on all vehicles. But at the end of the day, this is a work truck in a work truck environment. I don't expect it to be fast charged all that much. It's more likely that it's going to be charged at night at a depot and will be full by the next morning. I haven't really talked yet about handling, and I do feel that this is a very important point. There's not a lot to fault this for. The steering is actually really very light, much lighter than the steering that you'd find on the Hummer EV, which, as I've already mentioned, shares a platform with this truck. And that's because this truck is not stupidly lifted. It's not wearing ridiculously large wheels with oversized tires. This is wearing robust, rugged, reliable shoes that you're going to be able to get replaced very easily. Very durable wheels that are going to be very cheap to repair if they get damaged. And it's not a fancy smancy truck. And I think that's the biggest thing that makes this drive so well. The steering is remarkably tight, and you can kind of really very easily get into the right lane when you're going through traffic, in a parking lot. It feels and drives like a much smaller vehicle. And importantly, this version of the Silverado EV, while the big brother, the RST variant, you're a rich consumer and we're going to charge you a lot of money for this truck, they have four-wheel steering, but this truck, the work truck, does not. Despite that, it handles incredibly well. There's also plenty of beans. If I put my foot down here, you get some nice noise coming from the motors. You get a faux noise coming from inside the truck, which I don't like. Reminds me very much of the Hummer EV, but I believe you can turn that off. I just haven't had chance to play with it all that much yet. This quick acceleration, obviously, is because the truck needs a lot of power in its all-wheel drive train to be able to achieve its towing goals. This vehicle is capable of towing up to 10,000 pounds with ease, and it's something obviously I haven't been able to try out. It's a rental truck and I don't have access to a trailer right now. But at speed on this highway, the noise inside the cabin is far less than it was from the Hummer EV. It's a far nicer place to be. And I would also even hazard a guess that the visibility, based on my recollection of the Hummer EV, is so much better in this truck. You just feel like you've got a little bit more glass. You can see a little bit more of the world around you. It does have an all-round camera system that's very good and very clear. I guess Chevy has made it feel smaller than it actually is. But if you're coming to this from a car, like so many work trucks, it feels like it's designed for the job that it needs to be. Doing the job day in, day out, being reliable, being dependable, and not having huge numbers of distractions that are going to cause you a headache later on. At freeway speeds, this truck's work nature does make itself felt, but it's still remarkably well behaved. And if you consider that this vehicle is going to be driven by someone who may not have driven an EV before, I think it's quite an approachable vehicle to be behind the wheel of. I talked about this truck not having the fancy drop-down rear to the cab, the mid-gate that allows you to put larger items in, and that's reserved for the RST variants that are aimed more at consumers. And as a consequence, because you don't have the ability to drop the back of the cab down and have more load carrying capabilities, the rear of this is a little bit more utilitarian. You've got a rear bench seat, which is finished in the same heavy duty material that is found in the front, and underneath the seat there's nothing. There's just a space, and you could put a storage unit in there if you wanted. I'm sure that Chevrolet will sell you one. This being a rental, it doesn't have that. Also, this being a rental, the bed doesn't have any kind of liner in it, it's just a bare metal bed. But you do have, in this particular version, you do have all of the available power sockets in the back. I don't think it has the full power bar, but it does have a 240 volt outlet, and it also has 4 120 volt outlets. And then in the front of the vehicle, in the front, you get another 120 volt outlet. I'm just coming up to a roundabout now, so I'm going to show you in a second some of the prowess of this vehicle when it comes to its abilities in terms of cornering, because I really was surprised, and apparently it's down to the geometry of this truck as engineered by the team at Chevrolet. Because there's no engine, they had the ability to actually increase the steering prowess of this vehicle, and it does make it behave like it's a much smaller vehicle than it really is. I'm not even half lock yet. I did notice yesterday when I was driving it that if you do engage full lock, there was a little bit of steering rub at the front of the vehicle. I don't know if that's this vehicle in particular or if it's just the model, but for the most part, you're not going to actually hit the full limits of the steering. When it comes to backup power or onboard power, there's not a lot of difference between this, the Ford F-150 Lightning, the Rivian R1T, and the Tesla Cybertruck in terms of maximum theoretical capabilities. Although I think this version of the Silverado EV, the work truck, actually has more power as standard, more power output capability as standard compared to some of its competitors. But, and I think this is important, I believe that the Silverado EV does not let you power the outlets in the bed while the truck is being driven. At least that is what the truck appeared to tell me last night when I was faffing around with the center touchscreen display to try and figure out how it worked. Driving on a really busy road like this is, this is Southern California in the rush hour, and unfortunately we can't get away from it. But it does give me the chance to talk about one of the more interesting features of this vehicle, and that is its warning system. It vibrates your butt. It vibrates your butt when you're parking, if you're too close to the thing you're trying to park next to. When you are driving, if you turn on your indicator and there was someone in your blind spot, it will make your butt cheek on the relevant side vibrate. So if I was to signal right and there was someone in my right blind spot, it would vibrate my right butt cheek, and if I tried to go left and there was someone in my blind spot on the left, it would vibrate my left butt cheek. Being a very basic work truck, there are of course some creature features that I'm missing. I miss a heated steering wheel, because I like the cabin to be kind of cool, but I like my hands to be warm. I suffer from arthritis, and the warmth helps. I don't have any gloves today because I'm in Southern California and I've got badly sunburned, but nevertheless, I would like a warm steering wheel right now. And when it comes to parts, bins and costs, that would be relatively low cost to add. Interestingly, while we're talking about the steering wheel, while everything else in this vehicle pretty much is manually adjustable, the steering wheel is still electronically adjustable. I assume that's because it was cheaper to just put the electronically adjustable steering wheel on rather than go and make a manual one. Lessons there from Tesla, at least. But why there's no regenerative paddle, that is definitely a mystery to me. In terms of cabin climate, you get 2 knobs to allow you to adjust the climate control. It's 2-zone climate control, which is nice, especially if you're paired up with someone for work who likes the car nice and warm and you like it nice and cool. The other benefit to having a work-oriented truck with very little in the way of fancy bells and whistles is that the center bin is literally cavernous. There is a pass-through that allows you to pass things from the armrest cubby hole box thing into the 4 box that is down here. We normally find things like inductive phone, wireless charging and all of that good stuff, but because this is a work truck, it doesn't have any of that. It just has 2 USB-C outlets, and there are another 2 for the rear seat passengers. So this is a very perfunctory work truck. No bells, no whistles, everything is manual, it's very easy to drive, there's very little in the way of distractions, there's no technology jumping in and trying to do your job for you. I can see this being very popular with a specific group of people who maybe live out in the country and need a vehicle to help out on the farm but don't want a V8. Maybe people who are independent contractors who want an EV but don't need to spend a huge amount of money on a fancy work truck. But here's the problem, and I should be clear here, I don't know for sure if this is the 3WT or the 4WT. I haven't been able to figure out in the hour or 2 that I've been behind the wheel which version this is. If this is the 4WT, which I believe it might be, it has a starting price just shy of the $80,000 that the Ford F-150 Lightning Lariat is on sale for. And that's a bit wrong. Or as we might say in my home county of Norfolk, that's a rum and bore. Because while this is a fantastic work truck, that sticker price is ridiculously high. And it's ridiculously high because of that massive 200 kilowatt hour battery pack, at least in the 4WT version. And it makes me wonder why Chevrolet and other car companies continually insist on making vehicles that on paper are very, very competent, very good, but often come with a ridiculously large range. And for that, I want to go back about 20 years to the Chevrolet S10 EV pickup. It was a 2-seat EV pickup that was made the same time as the EV1. It was marketed and sold primarily to fleets. Some of them were leased and then taken back and crushed. Some were actually sold, and some still survive to this day. They're kind of rare, but they do exist. And that vehicle was an EV that had, maybe 100 miles on a good day, but a usable 60, 70, 80 miles of range, and allowed you to just get the job done. They were very popular here in California, and you saw a lot of companies use them as ways of getting people to and from work sites. But this feels overpowered in terms of specs for your average fleet vehicle. I don't know that many fleet operators who are gonna drive 200 or 300 miles in a day. It's gonna be closer to maybe 100 or 200 miles maximum. But even then, most fleet vehicles stay within like a 50 to 80 mile radius, and that means that these vehicles are going to be coming home half full most of the time. Why is that an issue? I mean, yeah, having more range is always better. But the issue here is that in order to be an affordable, useful vehicle, it needs to have a set of specs that matches the expectation of the person buying it. And asking someone to spend $80,000 on a work truck, it just doesn't jive. So great truck, shame about the price.
Thanks for joining me today, and if you've got thoughts, make sure you leave them below in our Discord chat room, or you can reach out to us on Mastodon. Thanks to the amazing list of people scrolling by on your screen right now. They are some of more than the 1,500 people who help fund this channel through Patreon and YouTube, covering our bills, paying our team, and making sure that we can remain 100% independent. If you'd like to join them and see your name listed here, just follow the links below. There's a range of different tiers you can sign up for, from as little as $1 a month, or if you pay yearly, just over $10 a year. A huge welcome to our newest supporters. Look, it's Moose, Dom, Stefan Venti, Tom G. Richardson, Benjamin Ford, Indigo, and Kem. To join the list and get your shout out, become a paid Patreon member for your week of fame. If you'd like to support us with a one-off donation, you'll find links below to make Ko-fi and Bitcoin donations, and we even have an old-fashioned PO box you can reach us at, address also below. And if you're in need of some swag, you'll find our swag store, also linked below. This month, we are celebrating a new amazing t-shirt design by our in-house artist and animator, Erin. Get yours today by heading to our Redbubble store. We've got some great content coming up, so make sure you've subscribed on PeerTube or YouTube, and we'll see you soon. We make new videos every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If you want more, the mighty algorithm thinks you'll like this video, but we also think this one is well worth a look. See you soon, and as always, keep evolving.